Bittersweet Dissonance by Watermelon's Melon Felon. Chapter 2. Pichu. But I know you aren't ignoring me! Pichu. I've got dirt on you, and I don't like being ignored. Katsu. I'm not. Katsu. I'm just having a difficult time right now. Pichu. Pichu. Trouble in paradise? Katsu. Something like that. Pichu. Did something happen? Pichu. Do I need to make Mega Hale's life hell? Pichu. I know things you don't know. Katsu. Whatever you want to do to that asshole, go ahead. Katsu. I honestly don't give a damn. Pichu. You've only been there since like September. Pichu. What could have happened between then and now? Pichu. I need to know for science. Pichu. Over how bad my actions need to be. Katsu. The ass wanted too much too soon, and when I wouldn't give, he kicked me out. Katsu. I've been in a small apartment for the past month or so. Katsu. I work at a less than reputable bar, and I do street performances. Pichu. The heck? Pichu. So you're just alone in a new country? Pichu. Have you called your mom yet? Pichu. Would you be opposed to me dragging Mega Hell through hell? Katsu. Yes. No, and please don't call her either. No, do what you want to him. IDC. Pichu. Yes! Pichu. Also, you should definitely call your family. Katsu. I don't want to be a burden. Katsu. Besides, it's embarrassing and I'm not ready to face them. Pichu. It's part of adulting, Yuri. Pichu. Sometimes we mess up. Pichu. The sooner you deal with it, the sooner you move on. Pichu. And the sooner I am to wreaking havoc all over Mega Hell. Katsu. I'm friendly with one of my coworkers. She's nice. Katsu. I saw her punch a guy out for being too familiar with her. Katsu. She didn't get fired either. Pichu. Cool! She got a Twitter? Katsu. Yes? Pichu? Hello? Pichu. Sorry! Pichu. I was checking to see if you've gotten any new Twitter followers. Pichu. Her name is Ellie? Katsu. It's creepy how you feel the need to do this. Pichu. You are my best friend and I am protecting you. Pichu. You're all the way over in Europe while I'm still in America. Pichu. This is the best I can do for now. Katsu. Smiley face. Pichu. She seems okay. The Bing translations kind of suck though. Pichu. She reminds me a bit of Leo though. Katsu. She's German, not Mexican. Pichu. Tomato. Pichu. Both are tanned, have the same hair and eye color, and like yellow a lot. Pichu. You have your own Leo to keep your tail. Pichu. Speaking of Leo, he was asking after you. Pichu. Told me to tell you to stay safe and not go into strange places, loco. Katsu. I'll thank him when I get the chance. Pichu. Good. Pichu. Don't be a stranger. I need to get your input on my music. Katsu. I'll be available early mornings between 6 and 7 here. Katsu. So like 11 p.m. to 12 a.m. for you. Pichu. Kike. I'll be up around those times. Pichu. Can you take texts or is it too much money? Katsu. Twitter or Tumblr chats are best for now. Pichu. When you get the chance, Skype me. Katsu. Okay. Pichu. See ya, bro. Victor stared down at the generic white envelope in his hand and looked back up to Yuri, whose face was as red as the scarf Victor had given him. He looked as if he wanted to just disappear or melt into the fabric. He was also refusing to meet Victor's gaze despite the Russian attempting to catch his eyes. No, Yuri seemed to find Victor's old scarf, one of many that he had been given over the years, more interesting. What is this? The Russian inquired, holding the folded paper up, using the sunlight as a way to see the contents inside. Long and rectangular, it appeared. Yuri sighed and readjusted his gloves for the third time since Victor had greeted him that morning. He was definitely one to fidget at any given chance. You were a little too generous the other day, said Yuri, voice muffled a little through the fabric of his scarf. I was able to rent a bed with some of it, which was great. But I felt bad that you had handed me so much and decided to just give the rest back. Behind blocky blue glasses, Yuri's eyes sparkled slightly, and while Victor's breath was certainly caught whilst in awe of the other man's beauty, Victor couldn't help but frown. Because 50,000 rubles was nothing, it was like the price of a half-decent suit, at least. And to think Victor had been worried over the fact that he hadn't given Yuri enough money. How incorrect he'd been. "It was a gift, Yuri," Victor said, pushing the envelope against the other's chest, refusing the other's generous offer. Yuri was far too good for the world, and Victor was baffled that he could even look at money and decide that he didn't need some of it. No one had ever said or done anything of the sort while in Victor's company before, so he was allowed to be shocked. "I enjoyed your company immensely, and I actually had fun for the first time in a long while. Of course I wanted to thank you for that, and the best way to do so was to contribute in a meaningful way. But it's too much," protested Yuri, trying to shove the envelope back into Victor's arms, but to no avail. Victor's hands refused to reach up and take the envelope from the other man, and remained stubbornly pressed against his outer thighs. He could see Yuri's growing frustration flashing in his eyes, and found it minutely charming and partially hilarious, though he would never admit such out loud. Victor shook his head, an almost mad grin on his face. "Not to me it isn't." The man groaned and sent him an exasperated look. "Besides," said Victor, "how do you know that something won't happen and you won't need the extra money? You've only been here for a few months. You told me so a few days ago. And whatever job you have right now isn't helping you very well if this is when you finally manage to get yourself a bed." He wasn't wrong either, which made the situation all the more surreal for Victor. He didn't like the thought of Yuri not having a bed to sleep in, so he was very happy that what he'd been able to give had finally gotten something for Yuri to sleep on. He'd never been faced with something of this magnitude before, but it was nice to know all the same. Yuri flushed and looked away, his insisted pushing on the envelope dying down. There was no point in continuing if Victor wasn't even going to bother playing along. Not now. "Yuri, I would prefer you to be okay than to think that you're struggling to get by. I don't know why you came to Russia of all places when it's obvious that you aren't a native. But you are here right now and you somehow managed to run into me, of all people. I don't like the thought that someone so amazing is having a hard time when I know I can help, even a little bit." "It's really not as bad as you think," insisted Yuri, still refusing to make eye contact. "I was in a relationship that fell through and I got kicked out. I managed to get by though, and I've decided to stay for a while until I'll no doubt have to go back to Japan. Things aren't great, but they could be worse, so I'm not complaining. I'm a lot more lucky than many other people are." Yuri was such an inherently good person, Victor was beside himself with shock. Anyone else, Victor included most definitely, would be complaining about their situation and whining to any available ear. Instead, Yuri was there in the middle of the winter months, working day in and day out in the freezing weather in order to make himself some money in order to continue existing. That kind of determination was admirable. It was also enough to make him more aware of things happening outside his own flat and the rink. That other people had lives too, and not everyone was as blessed as he was. A wake-up call if there ever was one. "If you need any help, don't be afraid to ask me," he told the other man sincerely. He would be anywhere in an instant if Yuri decided that he needed some help and came to Victor for it. "I know sometimes it's hard to ask for help, but I wouldn't want my friends suffering." Brown eyes widened. "We're friends?" the man asked in wonder. "Yeah, if you would like to be." "Well, we haven't even exchanged mobile numbers yet." "We can do that now," said Victor, pulling his own mobile out and taking a photo of Yuri immediately. It was a great excuse to do so. "You're so embarrassing." He laughed, charmed and happier than he had been in a while. Nothing could bring his mood down right now. Not even Yakov's insistent yelling to get his butt back into the rink and start practicing. Once they both had exchanged mobile numbers officially, and he finally learned Yuri's full name, Katsuki Yuri, he was able to focus on exactly why he'd skipped across the street to see the man. "If you'd like to earn some more money, I have a few song suggestions, and I'd like to see what you can arrange on the spot. If you're up for the challenge, at least." Yuri's eyes sharpened instantly at the thought of a challenge, and Victor found himself wishing the other could skate. Facing off against someone with such a nice outlook on competition would have been nice. "I can do anything you throw at me, Nikiforov." Yuri was very good, he found out, and it might have given him ideas, but he had to be absolutely sure first before saying anything. What he was sure about, though, was that he was absolutely smitten after only 3 encounters with the same man. Some odd sort of magic he was not privy to. Katsuki Yuri had it in spades. Vina gave it up. No one will understand the depth of my loneliness right now. I am missing my dear Maga. Hashtag my puppy is still at home. Hashtag help me. Hashtag I miss my puppy. Hashtag it's so quiet. Hashtag look at the puppy I have to wait to see. Christoph GC. Victor not gave it up. You'll only be gone for a few days. You can handle the separation for now. Besides, the reunion will be all this winter. Hashtag pet problems. Hashtag feels. JJ Leroy 15. Christoph GC. Vina gave it up. It's not JJ's style to miss that which he already knows he possesses. Vina gave it up. JJ Leroy 15. Oh, are you again? Christoph GC. Vina gave it up. You are one hell of a dick, if you know what I mean. Hashtag funny. Hashtag love it. Victor gave it up. Christoph GC. You would know. Though to be honest, who is he? Hashtag I really don't know. With Victor's challenges every week, Yuri had noticed that he was becoming better at arranging on the spot. He hadn't had to do it so much before, but he realized just how helpful Victor's little game was for him. His fingering had improved the more they played the game, and he wondered if he'd finally be able to do Michael Jackson's Beat It on time with the actual guitar solo. He hadn't tried it yet, but he was certain that given enough time to perfect his work, he'd be able to do it. He would also need a home of his own because the only time he could use his laptop was at the coffee shop, and he wasn't going to disturb the other diners by playing his violin so early in the morning. Of course, without Victor there with him, he wasn't as excited to play for others. People didn't usually bother to engage him in conversation. Victor had, which was what had helped soften Yuri to him. The skater was bubbly and happy and seemed to be full of never-ending energy. It was lonely without him. So what exactly is your job? Victor asked him the day after he got back from competing at the European Skating Championships. It was now early February, and they had known each other for about 3 weeks, seeing each other 3 or sometimes 4 times a week. I perform at a bar. I'm a strings lover. Piano, guitar, violin, harp. If it's got strings, I can probably pick it up easier than most other instruments. I play guitar most of the time for the house band. It's not great, but the other players are decent people in similar positions as I am, so we all know to just go for it and hope for the best each night. Victor sipped at the hot cocoa he'd brought along. Are you like a prodigy? Yuri's face no doubt had gone red. Yes, he admitted quietly. He wasn't comfortable thinking about his skills beyond being able to play. It made him feel like he was bragging, and he didn't want to brag. Braggarts were annoying, and he greatly detested hypocrisy. I'm a prodigy too, said Victor, grin wide and bright. Did you take classes? He shrugged. Basic ones. My family couldn't afford to get me real lessons in music. I could have gone into dancing free of charge. I took ballet for many years before I fell in love with the violin. My instructor was a prima ballerina and a receipt of the Benoit de la Danse. I could have done it. But then I picked up a violin, messed with the strings, and started playing all the songs I could find, even if I was playing wrong. As a gift, Minako-sensei enrolled me into some basic classes so that I could learn to read sheet music and notes. Unfortunately, I felt bad that she was paying for it, and I quit after the second year. I attended an American university on a half scholarship and took AP Music Theory while there. Everything else came with practice on my own, and I just seem to be really good no matter what I do. So I suppose I'm just very lucky. Victor whistled. You are amazing, Yuri. You are amazing! And that is it, luck, Yuri. That is talent that you work with to train yourself. So says the 4-time world figure skating champion. It was Victor's turn to flush. You know about that? I looked up your name and watched some of your videos. The look at Victor's face was like a deer caught in the headlights. You were beautiful, Yuri admitted, remembering the fluttering in his stomach when he watched the man completely bare himself in the rink in front of millions of people worldwide. A type of artistry not seen often. He'd been paranoid that people would look over his shoulder and had crammed himself into a booth at the far end of the shop in order to watch. Thank you, Yuri. It was just the truth. But the truth seemed to be touching for Victor, so Yuri merely smiled in response and waited for the man to suggest his first song of the morning. Hallelujah was one he had never tried before, but it certainly set the mood.
Who do you keep wasting time with every morning?
Victor looked down at the blonde and could only think about how this Yuri was not his favorite. He was a decent kid, but his attitude left a lot to be desired, and Victor just found himself more fond of the Japanese Yuri than the Russian one. The other Yuri knew how to have fun. This one was too much like a grouchy old man to be any true fun. He's a friend of mine who plays violin beautifully. I like having the pleasure of his company. The teen scoffed. You should be choreographing my short program for my senior debut, not messing around with that idiot who carries a purple violin case of all things. Victor had to think about his response. Technically, he had already begun working on his next two programs, as well as the program he had promised for the boy. As he had begun working on his own, it wouldn't hurt for Yuri to begin training for his next season either. Besides, he had an idea. I've already finished the choreography for both of our short programs. It's acquiring the music that is taking so long, he said flippantly. The blonde gaped.
You actually remembered?
I can remember things when it's most important. A scoff.
You forget the jacket half of the time.
How can we expect you to remember your promise to me if you can't remember things for yourself? I remember my own choreo, don't I? Yuri said nothing, knowing that Victor was correct after all.
Just show me already.
Victor did. He showed the teen everything he had, giving his all to the performances, even when he didn't have the music on hand at present. It was still a breathtaking routine.
Why do I have a feeling that this is going to be about something sappy?
Victor winked. It certainly has a heavenly vibe to it, don't you think?
It's disgusting and so not me.
His smile turned evil. But it's going to be your senior debut piece. And the boys eye roll and murmur about ridiculous idiots. Victor added, it could be a gold-winning routine if I skated it, so you better give it your all, Yurachka. Once the blonde was sufficiently riled up, Victor moved on to practice his own routine. The one that was inherently more sexual and probably very naughty if he gave it his all at the right competition. With the right motivation, probably.
Why couldn't I get that one?
The teen demanded after Victor's first run-through.
I would have totally been able to do that one.
He scoffed. As if Victor would give a currently 14-year-old such a sexual routine. He wasn't that irresponsible. Yuri stared at the letter on his small bed and sighed. Of all the things to have happened to him, this had to be it. Peachy had told him that going to Russia was a bad idea, and he finally understood why. Sure, getting dumped after a few months of living together had been harsh, but it didn't fully hit him until he was living on his own and barely managing to live week by week. He didn't want to bother his family for help. They'd done enough for him, and he wasn't going to prove that basically everything he'd done so far in his life had been pointless. He didn't want to disappoint anyone, and it wasn't like he could do more than text them anyway. He had no internet, because it was expensive. He had no television even. Not that he wanted it. He wasn't much for TV or movies. The heat and electricity were very expensive for one person living alone in a single-bedroom apartment. It was much different than the dorm had been in America, and kind of lonely. Seeing Victor every other day was like a blessing. The second familiar face that he found pleasant in his current life. He missed his friend Peachy, but he couldn't do more than text the other currently, and even that was on a limited plan for a while until he could switch to something better. He had to be more delicate with his funds for the time being. That meant using less heat, water, and electricity until he was more financially stable. And now it had happened, which was annoying. His landlord was a jerk. There was no kind way of putting it. The man was greedy and disgusting, and he tried to play Yuri for the fool. Yuri had been stuck with him because he'd been the only person to understand any English, and Yuri wasn't going to complain when he needed the apartment. Yuri was being evicted because he apparently used up too much of the power. Yuri, who was rarely home for more than 8 hours a day, had used up too much electricity. Yuri, who didn't have a refrigerator or microwave, nor a television, DVD player, or gaming system, or even used the lights because he slept during the day mostly and was gone to work before it got dark enough to use lights. Yuri was being evicted on the grounds that he wasted too much energy. He had 2 weeks to pack up and get out. Thankfully, he only had his laptop, which he used early mornings at the coffee shop that offered free Wi-Fi, his new bed that was smaller than the one he had back in Hasetsu, Japan, and it had been rented, so it would just have to return to the shop. A small table and a small sofa would be sold easily. He had 13 days to find new lodgings or else. Yuri currently had about 15,000 rubles to his name. Suddenly, Victor's insistence on him keeping the money instead of giving it back made a lot more sense. He really needed it now, and he didn't know what to do.
Yuri, I have a new challenge for you today.
Victor was running down the walkway, his iPod in his hand and a pair of earbuds in the other.
I want you to listen to this, and then I want to see if you can play your own arrangement.
Yuri smiled when he finally laid eyes on Victor and shifted to the other side of the bench so that they could share the space. He'd been patiently waiting for the skater like always, and Victor hadn't disappointed. He'd wanted to see Yuri as soon as possible. The Russian plunked himself down and held the earbuds out to the younger man.
It's one of my favorite songs, and I think you would do it wonderfully. Also, I'd just like to see what your fingers are going to do for it. You have such lovely fingers.
It was a piano piece done by an up-and-coming artist. She had composed it herself, and it was a very quick piece of music, requiring deft handling of any instrument one wanted to play it on. Yuri was a monster on the violin, and Victor wanted to know if it was possible for him to do it. And if not, there was nothing wrong with that. I could probably do it on the piano, the musician admitted. I don't have a piano, though, so it would be a while before I could show you. Victor pouted, just when he had gotten all excited over it. But it was fine. I could try on the violin if you want me to, Yuri offered, rushing to take up his violin then. He was halted by Victor's hand on his elbow. His face was serious.
Do you think you can actually do it, or would you prefer to do something else today? I don't want to push you if you aren't comfortable already.
Yuri's smile was breathtaking.
Play me your favorite song instead,
said Victor, taking the earbuds back and turning the device off.
I want to know what speaks to Katsuki Yuri most at this very moment.
It ended up being a very sad piece. It made him think of great loss and loneliness. But Yuri simply sat on the edge of the bench playing the soulful notes and leaning from side to side occasionally as he lost himself in the music. There was a morose expression on his face. Even though his eyes were closed, he looked so very sad. If whatever the song was called was Yuri's favorite song at present, Victor had to wonder what was wrong. He also wasn't sure of how he should go about asking, though. He didn't want to seem weird getting up in Yuri's business when he didn't really have to. But Yuri was also his friend, and he didn't want Yuri to be sad. Victor didn't like sadness. He'd dealt with it for far too long to approve.
Maybe Yuri would do good with a little poodle time. His Maka would probably like Yuri a lot. He could take time off from skating because Worlds was a few weeks away, and he could bring Maka around for a walk on the next day they would meet up. It was settled. A day to make Yuri feel better was going to be planned once he was done with practice for the day.
Yuri sighed, incredibly sad that he'd had to bring the bed back to the rental center. But it was much better than buying it outright. The sofa and night table had been sold for a few thousand rubles, which was fine since they weren't even that great to begin with. He was currently staying in an inn. It wasn't that bad considering they offered free Wi-Fi and a complimentary breakfast to everyone. There was a laundry room and a snack room. Down the road, there were shops of all kinds. He'd be paying every 3 nights he stayed, and there was even a discount for staying 3 nights in a row. So in essence, it could be worse. He just had to have 6,000 rubles every 3 days until he could find a new place. Preferably one that didn't have a human douche for an owner. At least the washroom is in good condition, and housekeeping had the bathroom restocked every day with new towels and soaps. Honestly, the inn was a much better choice than the small apartment had been. There was a coffee/tea maker, a microwave, a mini fridge. He almost felt pampered. Yuri slept the entire night on a full-sized bed instead of one that made his childhood bed look decent. At least he could finally Skype Peachy back. He just knew that he'd be in for a long talk about making good decisions and how Peachy was probably going to smack him the next time they met up in person. But he missed his friend, and it was totally worth it. When he finally talked to Peachy face-to-face, he found out what became of Mikhail. Peachy had saved a few embarrassing things on his mobile. Things that come about after a drunken night in uni where he said and did things that were probably borderline illegal and immoral.
Peachy had sent the evidence to everyone on Mikhail's friend list on Twitter, shared links on it on every other social media site the ass had a profile on, practically embarrassed the ass for hurting Yuri. Mikhail deleted his accounts and his new girlfriend dumped him and friended Peachy and kept him up to date on the happenings. Apparently, Yuri's ex was kicked out of his recent ex's house and was struggling to get by, living on his parents' sofa for the time being. Karma was actually a thing. And despite everything going on recently, Yuri felt a lot lighter in spirit. Hey, Victor, get over here. When the man finally deigned to grace the blonde with his attention, the boy looked like he was going to burst. Yes, Yurachka? Did you know that your body is living in one of those crappy hotels off the side of the highway? Victor frowned. Do you mean Yuri? The guy with the violin, right? The boy asked, looking like he was ready to kill someone. Yes. Well, Grandpa came to visit, and as we were coming off the exit, I saw the guy you've been crushing on walking down the street. We saw him cross the road twice. He walked in the grass for like 10 minutes and then went inside one of the small rooms at the hostel. He had a key card and everything. He was carrying his stupid purple violin case with him, and he looked like crap. Victor stared for the better part of a minute before asking, Why did you follow him? I was just curious. I don't care or anything. But he's your friend and stuff, so whatever. Victor nodded. Thanks for telling me, Yuri. He had to message Yuri and ask him what was going on. He just hoped that whatever it wasn't what his mind had come up with first. Katsuki Yuri was too sweet and innocent to have to live a life where he had to do things in order to survive.